Hey guys, today we're tackling the famous travel dilemma everybody faces, Banff or Jasper. I'm going to tell you the real story here and show you which of these parks fits you best and also give you insights about crowd-free alternative between these two parks. And to make sure I won't forget anything, I have my list ready prepared for you. So let's first dive into the vibe of these two different parks. Speaking about these two parks, although they're neighbors, they feel like totally different worlds, and getting this right is the foundation of your whole trip. Banff is a famous superstar of the Rockies. It's a park from Instagram with all these great blue lakes and grand fairy tales hotels. It's Canada's oldest and most visited national park, drawing over 4 million visitors each year, which gives the city or also the park a vibrant and bustling, sometimes frenetic energy. The town itself is a fully fledged resort. It's polished and it's packed with everything. You'll find high-end art galleries, clubs, restaurants, and it's totally exciting and accessible. And sometimes this energy can be contagious. But the fame comes also with intensity. The main streets in summer are often packed and you're shoulder to shoulder. And the big attractions feel like kind of a well-oiled machine, like from these Disney parks and kind of things. And you feel they're built for massive crowds. For some families, that's a huge plus. If you love these options and the popular bus, then Banff is the perfect place to be. It's kind of thinking of this A-list celebrity, like the A-list celebrity of the Rockies that everybody wants to see. Glamorous, but a bit high maintenance, but nonetheless very spectacular. And Jasper, on the other hand, is the rugged neighbor, the laid-back heart of the Rockies. It gets about half of the visitors of Banff, and you feel the differences immediately. In this park, the energy is quieter, slower, and it is more connected to the wilderness. This town, Jasper, feels less like a resort, but more like a real working mountain town. Shops are more likely to be owned by locals, as well as the restaurants, which makes the vibe much more cozier and kind of real, if that makes sense. So basically, you're not come here for the glamour, you come here for the grit and the grandeur. To be honest, the great thing is, you probably get into traffic jams by elk crossings rather by humans. If you as a family or as a travel try to disconnect, then Jasper is the perfect place to be. It offers quieter trails, less crowds, so it's kind of a breath of fresh air. It's kind of, you could describe it as the rugged explorer. It's authentic, a bit more remote, but still so rewarding. Believe me, the park is massive. It's of the Canadian Rockies, the biggest park, so naturally the people spread out much more than in other parks, meaning less packed. And you could describe it a bit this way. While Jasper is the perfect art gallery, Jasper is this rugged, wide open range. Let's talk about scenic and iconic landmarks. So when it comes to jaw-dropping moments in the Canadian Rockies, you can't go wrong. But the difference is how you're gonna experience this different scenery. Banff is home to the famous Lake Louise and Morn Lake. The surreal turquoise water is a real bucket list moment, but seeing them requires a bit of planning. Since 2023, you can't drive with the car to Morn Lake anymore. You need to book shuttle buses or use them. That brings you as well to Lake Louise, by the way, if you want to avoid the parking hard as well. And access is only by Parks Canada shuttle buses, and you have to book these shuttle buses in advance. That saves you also a lot of hassle. If you can book things in advance, it's always easier or less stress-free. And what you need to know is the booking spots are released in batches, and if I'm not mistaken, for 2026 it is going to open first in April, mid of April, April 15th, I think. So the great thing is actually it kills the stress with parking, like mentioned before, and on the other hand, it also kills spontaneity. Hope I said that correctly, but you have to stick to a scanner. That's one of the drawdowns. That's something we come back later in this video as well. Other signature spots in Banff that are great to see are the Johnson Canyon, which is an amazing catwalk trail on canyon walls that leads you up to waterfalls. It's great for families, but can feel like a bit like a conga line. And the Banff gondola whisks you up to Sulphur Mountain for insane panorama. On the other hand, Jasper's iconic scenery feels wider and more expensive. Expensive not in the sense of expensive, but more wider. At the crown jewel definitely is the Malinia Lake in Malinia, the famous island, the Spirit Island. And the best way to see it and experience it is on a boat cruise, but it's a bit of it on the expensive side, and it needs pre-booking as well in advance. But gladly enough, the crowd spreads out very well, and that also makes it less crowded than it would be at Lake Louise, for example. The drive to the place is actually an adventure on itself already, as you have a high chance to see wildlife on the drive. And there's also the Malinia Canyon, Jasper's answer to Johnson Canyon. One thing you need to know is following the 2024 wildfires, access to some areas has been impacted, and while recovery is strong, and I hope we see some of it this year as well, most of the parking is open, but areas like the Malinia Canyon have required significant assessment. Always check the latest Park Canada updates to see what are the latest assessments of the park and which areas can now be accessed. Although it shows great signs of regeneration, it's always secure to be prepared in advance. Connecting these two parks is the famous Icefields Parkway. That is it's a stretch of over 230 kilometers, and the drive itself is almost a trip and an adventure itself. So you can't rush through. So really need to plan out a whole day for the ride. And some of the famous stops are Peyto Lake, the Icefield, the Athabasca Glacier Icefield. It also shows definitely the wild side and spirit of Jasper on the Jasper side. And be aware there is no gas station between Banff and Jasper on the Icefields Parkway, and there's limited cell signal coverage, so that's something you need to take into account. But also means you need to plan your things properly in advance. But still, it depends a bit also if you want to have these postcard views or you want to plan and map out everything or just take it as it comes. Sometimes you might experience wild landscapes when you just drive and get out whenever you feel to it. That's what I would do, where I tend to do. So speaking of some Banff alternatives or Banff swaps, crowd-free places, you could go to Emerald Lake instead in the Yoho National Park, which delivers, believe me, an equally beautiful lake with the same turquoise water, and it feels like magic. And you even have a little boardwalk to feels like an island, but it's beautiful. You can visit Bow Lake or visit early or late at Peyto Lake for sweeping glacier views without the gridlock. Then instead of Lake Louise canoe line, maybe paddle Lake Minnewanka instead, or the Bow River, which is actually cheaper. And maybe for a quick feed point without the crowds, go try out the Fairview, look at above Lake Louise. And if Johnson Canyon is packed too much, aim for peak hours like late afternoon, or explore quieter alternatives like the Marble Canyon in the Kootenay National Park. And if you talk about Jasper swaps, trade the Malinia Lake for Pyramid Lake, Patricia or Lake Bower or Lake Edith as an alternative. They are also great spots for picnics, swims, paddles, whatever you feel comfortable with. And instead of stopping at the famous places or viewpoints from the Icefields Parkway, maybe plan a picnic at some point. Maybe think of Tangle Creek, or also think of doing certain things earlier in the day or later in the day that will always helps you a bit avoiding the crowds. I think in my past video I even mentioned some lookouts on alternatives to the famous ones that you can do also in addition or instead. So going on with some kid-friendly activities, both parks offers incredible options to do with their children and have awesome playgrounds, just different styles and different type of fun. In Banff, as mentioned before, the adventures are a bit more polished, a bit more organized, a bit more accessible. The Banff Gondola is definitely a thrilling ride with interactive exhibits at the top, but also you pay a higher price tag. Lake Minnewanka boat cruise is a gentle 1-hour tour. Then the Cave and Basin National Park, National Historic Site, has an easy boardwalk over thermal waters, or canoeing in Lake Louise is definitely a great option too, but expect a higher price tag. Maybe consider Bow River instead. And for hiking, kids love the Johnston Canyon catwalks, and to walk to the first waterfalls is quite an easy walk. There's, I think the second is that the upper fall. I'm not certain about that one anymore. And then the Fernland Trail is a flat, stroller-friendly loop near town. So that's one option. So change papers because I want to make sure everything is ready and I don't forget anything. But talking about Jasper, family funds, which lean more toward the nature and wildlife, like the Sky Tram, that's a similar option to the gondola that goes up top of the mountain of Whistler's Mountain. And a must-do trip is to meet the hot springs, the hottest hot springs within the Canadian Rockies. It's a great option on a rainy day after a hike to go there and enjoy the hot waters. And for wildlife, Jasper is definitely the undisputed champion here. You almost guarantee to see wildlife even in Jasper itself, and you also very often see bears in the different areas. Then if you talk about waterfront, we tackled it before. Lake Annet and Lake Edith are great. They have beaches and are a bit warmer and so great for picnics. And Malinia Canyon offers various hikes for various levels, but as mentioned before, you would need to check if it's accessible when you will be there in 2026. But the bottom line is Banff offers more structured attractions, and Jasper is all about organic nature and showing the wild spirit of the national park. Talking about the crowd-free alternatives you could do with your kids is swap busy lake shores for Cascade Ponds or Vermilion Lakes. Then a bike stretch of the Legacy Trail, that's also a great option too as well. And then the Cave Basin and the Banff Hooters Bay viewpoints are also other options that you could do with your children, which have experienced lesser crowds. And if you talk about the swaps for Jasper, plan beach days at Pyramid Lake or Lake Annet and Edith with picnics, or even choose easy walk at the Athabasca over pricey and crowded activities, and maybe short few strolls to the Old Fort Point keeps little hikes engaged as well. So let's start with getting there. Banff has a massive advantage here. You can fly in at the Calgary airport, which is just 90 minutes drive away from Banff, and that convenience also causes 4 to 4.5 million visitors each year to Banff. And getting there and around is simple thanks to road transit or the mandatory lake shuttles. There's even shuttle services from Calgary Airport or downtown Calgary to get to Banff. But this accessibility causes Banff the biggest challenges and also the big crowds. And that's why in July and August, Banff sometimes feels a bit overwhelmed, busy, too packed, what you see on the sidewalks. You have long waits at restaurants, you need to reserve places, and other than that, parking might be filling quite fast. And soon, shuttle systems mean your days are locked into schedules, so you not have so much liberty. And to find peace, you need to get up before dawn, or visit in the shoulder season, or maybe do certain things in the late afternoons. It sometimes might be something that might hold you back. That's it where the difference comes in Jasper, which is defined by its remoteness. The closest point to get there is Edmonton Airport, which is a 4 hours drive away from Jasper. That's also one of the reasons why Jasper only sees half of the visitors that Banff has each year, and you will notice that immediately. There's more room to breathe, and you can often find parking at trailheads at mid-morning. The flip side is you really need your own car in Jasper. There's no public transport around like it has in Banff. So on the other hand, it gives you flexibility that you need for naps, snacks, and spontaneous stops, so you're not stuck to a schedule, which gives you back this you feel the rush of doing a road trip without planning a bit more. And another option to get to Jasper is actually via rail, a scenic train journey that stops in Jasper. So here's the direct trade-off between these two areas. Banff has an amazing accessibility, but major crowds and rigid planning. Jasper, on the other hand, you need longer journeys to get there. It's a bit quieter and offers though a more relaxed experience. And if we talk about crowd-free alternatives or tactics, there are some timing hacks that you can use to avoid crowds. Go at sunrise or after dinner, for example. A midweek explorations, and maybe if possible avoid long commuting weekends. I know that's not always possible, especially if you're coming from Europe and have booked your 3 weeks trip. To move around in Banff, you might consider using the Banff Rome Transit and Parks shuttles to skip parking hassles and stress. Consider the Bow Valley Parkway for wildlife and camping pullouts. And base camp choices. Maybe you could consider sleeping in Canmore instead of Banff itself. And for Jasper, look at Hinton, for example, or Whalemount as your base camp, and then day trip into the parks. So let's speak about the two towns, Banff and Jasper. If you use them as your home base, then you need to know they have totally different characters. Banff is the world-class resort. The Banff Avenue is filled with luxury brands, souvenir shops, high-end galleries, even a Christmas shop. The food scene is diverse and has everything from McDonald's to fine dining. Look at your raclette in Banff. It's convenient with candy stores, ice cream parlors, big grocery stores, but that also comes with its resort town prices and this high energy buzz I mentioned in the beginning, and sometimes it can feel a bit commercialized and kind of a world away from the wilderness. So if that's something you have wanted, then it might not be the right thing. And if we talk about the town of Jasper, offers a more down-to-earth, authentic vibe. It feels like a genuine Canadian railway town. The main street has locally owned shops, cozy and family-run restaurants. You don't find as much luxury brand stores here. Instead, you find charming spots like the famous Bear's Paw Bakery. The atmosphere is more relaxed. It's actually okay to wear hiking boots when you go to eat out in restaurants, and the railway tracks adds to its authentic character. You have a high chance of seeing elk grazing right in the middle of the town next to the visitor center, of course, and then you need to even pay attention not to getting too close, as they might feel disturbed. But overall, it's less glamorous and more about genuine connection to the mountain and to the mountain life itself. If we talk about avoiding the crowds a bit in both places, in Banff, maybe stay outside of Banff as your home base, meaning sleep in Canmore, rent an apartment there, or check out Lake Louise Village as an alternative, or even Golden instead of Banff. And if you want to stroll through downtown Banff, maybe think of doing that in the morning rather in the afternoon or evening. For sunsets, maybe go to Vermilion Lakes and picnic at the Central Park playground as an alternative. And in Jasper, if you don't want to stay in Jasper and if it's too expensive, look for Hinton or Valemount as alternatives. And definitely also look for apartments, Airbnbs, VRBOs to book instead. Then trade Main Street, bustle for a calm loop around Lac Beauvais. I have to look if I say it correctly. For a golden hour walk, check Old Four Points. So let's talk about costs and budgeting. So I really need to look on my notes here to make sure I have everything. So excuse me for that. But first, let's share the cost. Visit the parks, you need a Parks Canada pass, and as of 2026, the daily family pass is around 25 Canadian dollars. And if you're staying several days in the national parks, you might consider the annual Discovery Pass, which is obviously the best value at around 167 bucks. I think that's even the price for the whole family. I need to check that again. And the great news here is kids under 17 are free, so you don't need to pay for them. Also be aware Parks Canada is offering free admission during summer, if I'm not mistaken, from June 19th to September 7th. But the biggest difference in both areas are the lodging options and the costs. Both parks are expensive in summer. Expect rooms to be around $400 to $800 a night, while Banff has though a wider range of options. That's why I often recommend checking Canmore as nearby town that can be a 20 to 30% cheaper. So that's actually a very popular strategy if budget is a concern. And Jasper, on the other hand, has a bit more limited options. I've seen that also for our trip this year. It's a bit more difficult to find lodgings. There's no as such a Canmore next door option. Like said, Hinton or Valemount are passable options to do, but this is around the 1 hour's drive away, while Canmore I think is 20 minutes or something. But what you need to take into care, book as early as possible your accommodations in both places. You will profit from early bird discounts. Maybe there are also Black Friday deals. Maybe if you plan for 27, the places, and that's the one of the main points, the good places are gone very soon. So please be aware of that. Then if you talk about activities and booking things, do the same strategy. As soon as you know you'll be there, book them as advanced as possible. You usually have better discounts. Maybe check Get Your Guide or Viator for discount options. And then if you want to save some additional money, especially if you're not traveling with a camper, look for a cooler where you can put in your breakfast or your lunches, keep things cool so you have something on the way. And also keep in mind that if you fill up your gas in Jasper or Banff, if you want to travel the Icefields Parkway, it's usually rather expensive in these places. Yeah, I think I've mentioned everything. But anyway, look for prices in Canmore or Valemount and Hinton to get some alternatives. And if you then talk about smart budget alternatives, look in both places for Airbnbs or VRBOs or apartment options, and maybe even check out some authentic possibilities in both places that might be also fitting for you. Or even maybe you can consider camping with a tent, might also be a budget option. But still there, you need to book the campgrounds very early and as soon as possible, as there's usually a time window opening in March, I think, for summer, where you can book your spots. Also, it also always makes a huge difference in places like Malinia Lake. Instead of booking the boat cruise, which is rather expensive, take a walk or hike around the lake. Same goes if you want to book a canoe at Lake Louise. Consider doing the same thing, but at Bow River or Lake Minnewanka. It's cheaper. In Banff, and for example, instead of booking the Banff gondola, go to Mount Norquay, which you can go up the chairlift, which is also a cheaper option. Then, if we talk about grocery and fuel I've already mentioned, but grocery, you might consider doing a full grocery for a whole week in Calgary or Edmonton, just outside these two mountain towns, to avoid this mountain resort pricing. Maybe fill up your gas tanks, if doable, before the national parks as an additional option. Maybe if you come from Whale the gas is even cheaper, or if you come from Hinton or from Canmore, you might have a better. So coming back to the point, which park is right for you? So it all comes down to the travel style and what's important for you. You should choose Banff if your family loves energy and world-famous destination and accessibility. You don't mind planning ahead for crowds and reservations. Your kids are thrilled by big attractions like gondola or chairlift or famous lakes. It's spectacular, convenient, world-class mountain experience, and everything is basically there. You don't need to miss out anything at all. So nature and luxury at the same time. Jasper, on the other hand, is if your family craves a wilder, more authentic connection to the nature, and if you're willing to drive much farther to escape the biggest crowds and get some time to breathe some fresh air, and if your perfect day is a hike or soak into hot springs, then Jasper is also the go-to place. The thrill of random elk sighting might be adding on top of it, as you have a higher chance of seeing wildlife in Jasper. To combine these things together, choose what fits your needs both. And to be completely honest, rather than saying I want to see one or the other, I would try to combine both at the same time and plan an itinerary around it. Check the tag above, because last time I made a video how to make an itinerary from Calgary to Edmonton to see both parks at the same time. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? What's your biggest takeaway? Did it help you? If I missed out on something, let me know as well. I would appreciate it a lot. And if you want to know more about my trip planning structure or planning with AI, check out the videos next by. See you in the next one.